Hi everyone, long time no chat. I'm hoping I mentioned it before, but if I didn't, my plan for Inktober was to upload daily on Instagram and then make a summary of the week video here over on YouTube, which is what I've got for you today. Last year was the first time I tried Inktober, and luckily I met a lot of great artists who helped me get through it. So clearly I thought this year is going to be easy, or at least easier, but maybe not. Do you know what, with doing this once before is I had a lot of things I wanted to achieve this time round. I felt like last time I learned and I tried a lot, and it really kind of kick-started me into getting back into art. And so this time I wanted to focus on skills that I felt weaker on and I wanted to improve, hoping that by the end of the month I'd see an improvement. And so the main things I wanted to get better at this month are creating characters, making full illustrations, and by that I mean the character, the background, the atmosphere, and just building up the whole concept. And lastly, architecture, or at least the settings and backgrounds. So not much. I think that may be a bit impossible for some prompts, but that's what I'm striving for. And hopefully you'll see that thought process through this week. So for day one, the official prompt, which I have been following, was poisonous. Now last year the word poison came up and I drew a pufferfish, so this year I wanted to go a bit more venomous in my head as much as poisonous, and so I decided to draw a giant snake dripping venom. To bring in a character and a story, I thought it'd be interesting to see someone collecting that venom from beneath the snake. And this gave me a chance to play with the composition too. I wanted the snake to be looming over her and to take up the whole frame of the illustration so that the snake just feels more foreboding and overwhelming. I also wanted to keep the colours closer in hue, just so she doesn't feel too separate from the subject. And again, I was just trying to give that feeling of the snake being the biggest presence in the image. I loved painting the scales in this one so much. For reference, I've been using inks, mostly the Tombow Funesuke brush pens and sometimes the Pentel pocket brush pen, and then I've been using the Schminckel masking fluid to keep areas of it white before painting over with the Kuretake Gansei watercolours. What a mouthful. But yeah, this one took a lot of layering of watercolours to build up a gradient and some shadows, which I was really happy with, but did take a very long time to do. So that kind of informed the rest of the week in a way and just made me a little bit more time conscious. And yeah, that was day one. I'll try and give more of a fuller summary at the end of the month, I think. So for day two, the prompt was Tranquil. When I read this word, I was reminded of the time I went to Japan, and I got the chance to visit Kyoto when I was there and visit a lot of beautiful shrines. And yeah, that just defines the word tranquil for me. It also gave me the chance to try illustrating architecture too. I feel awkward with architectural drawings in this way, which I feel may sound a bit weird because I did do a degree in architecture and then go on to work in it. But it's very different drawing style, illustrating rather than technical drawing. And I don't want to get too personal, but I've got a lot of negative associations with architecture from that time. And whenever I draw architecture, it does feel a bit tainted. It's kind of like the opposite of rose-coloured glasses. No matter what I do, I immediately think that it looks like crap and I'll just throw it away. You honestly don't want to know how many times this year the weekly video was an architectural illustration and I threw it out and did something else instead. So yeah, I just really don't want to feel so hung up on this because I do enjoy drawing architecture a lot. And so I thought, why not focus on a different approach and style, and maybe that could help. And with Inktober, it's like, this is just one day, it will pass kind of thing. Whereas if, say, it's a weekly video, I'm looking at it for a while and then I'm editing it, and yeah, I just have a lot more time to grow and hate it. But oddly, I don't hate this drawing. I'm actually kind of happy with it. I use the Pentel brush pen for the foliage and the more natural elements, as it's just a lot more looser to draw with, and then I use the Tombows and some fine liners for the main man-made elements. It was nice to play with different pen styles to evoke different textures, and I think I'm going to try this in a few of the other Inktobers this month too. Also, with the prompt being tranquil, I wanted to choose what I would consider calming colours, and to me that means colours that are just a warm temperature, not hot or cold. So like yellow greens and orange pinks, both aren't very harsh or sharp to me. They kind of sit in some middle ground of colour. It's weird because I'm saying this and it just sounds really made up, but I'm sure you'll be in the same boat when it comes to colours. Like, you might say, hey, my favourite colour is purple, but when you're imagining purple, there's just a certain shade that you're imagining that could be completely different from what I imagine when I say the word purple. And I think colours can be subdivided down into shades and hues, and each one has a very different feeling associated with it. But that's definitely a much longer topic for this video, and I just want to get on to day 3. So, day 3, the word was roasted. God, this was hard. I woke up to this day and I just thought, oh my god, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I couldn't stop thinking about roast chicken and maybe a dragon cooking a roast chicken. I just wasn't feeling it, and I was worried that that dragon idea might be something that would appear a bit too close to day 1. So instead I went for a walk, and on that walk I saw a really weird looking cat. I think it was a grey British short hair. It had one of those chubby little faces and those giant yellow eyes. It was sitting on a little tree stump and it was giving me the evils from across the road. And the sun was all on it and his eyes were really bright, and yeah, no, it was just a crazy image. And I mean, obviously I did go across the road to pet it, so it wasn't that scary, but the image was in my head the rest of the walk, and I just thought, maybe I'd just go and draw a cat roasting you with its eyes. I could play up the scene a bit, maybe make it a bit more dramatic, maybe add some smoke, maybe play with the idea that the tree stump itself is on fire. I mean, have you ever seen those photos of trees that have been struck by lightning and inside of them is on fire and they're just glowing through the cracks of the tree bark? I kind of wanted to get that effect in the drawing, but I don't think I made the bark dark enough to really achieve it well. But to be honest, I feel like this is an illustration that could have done with some Photoshop and a little bit of After Effects and glow added onto it. Honestly, I probably like the ink of this drawing more than the overall final paint job, but maybe with more time, I'd have probably given that a second go. Maybe increase the overall contrast of the image, maybe make the cat and the stump a bit darker. But this lighter version isn't all bad. I was glad with how the smoke turned out. It's a lot of fun to paint smoke with watercolours, and the opacity and smooth appearance does seem to work really well together. And so yeah, I'm getting out of breath here, but this is how I've been all week. Okay, so we're on to day 4, and the prompt for this day was spell. If you're on Instagram following Inktober and a lot of different artists, you've probably seen that a lot of them have been doing variants of Inktober, and a popular one does seem to be witches, you know, considering it's Halloween very soon. So when spell came up, I kind of felt almost obliged to do a witch, but at the same time I felt really hesitant. This is going to sound a bit silly, but I felt like it was too on the nose and that I should be trying to challenge myself more. I'd told myself that I wanted to improve big concepts, not just a character floating in space, so I thought about the spell a witch might do. I wanted it to be something massive so that the witch wasn't the focus, the spell was, and so I thought about interesting landscapes. I've got a load of reference images over on my Pinterest, which I'll link below, that I do like to flick through when I'm just feeling an idea but I'm not sure which direction I want to take it. And in there were these deep red rock canyons, and I just thought they had just a great weight to them. And so I thought, well, the spell should contrast the weight of the landscape and be light as air. And so I thought, well, how about a cloud? And then how about a cloud of something really heavy, like an elephant? You see, there is a logic there. Maybe it just looks like someone painting a big elephant cloud initially, but I do have my reasons. And yeah, now I say them, they are a little bit confusing, but maybe just saying what I was doing might make it a little bit easier to understand. Anyway, this is the hardest part of making these videos. It's not learning to edit or spending ages trying to sort the audio out. It's trying to explain what I was thinking when this idea came about. But it's one of those things I love hearing artists talk about, so I feel like I should talk about it too. But then I hear it out loud and I just think I sound balmy. So anyway, that was the idea. I felt like this concept would have worked better purely painted because the ink kind of adds a bit too much weight to weightless things. So yeah, fun concept, but maybe a project that was better suited for acrylics. So for day 5, the prompt was chicken. Again, roast chicken comes to mind. Maybe I'm hungry. I don't think I'm the only one though who was pretty lost by this prompt. I think it's because it's a noun rather than a verb or adjective. It's a lot more prescriptive and harder to get past. Because there's a lot of things that you could think could be poisonous. Maybe a creature or a person or an ideology. But a chicken, I mean... Anyway, so I did a lot of sketches for this prompt and I just forced myself into this illustration as I was running out of time. I tried to focus on things that I wanted to improve rather than some key concept or idea. I knew I wanted to do a close-up of a face because I'm terrified of doing them, and though this word being chicken, I felt like that was pretty apt. I also wanted to do an egg because the whole chicken and egg gubbins, and I came up with this idea of a girl almost prodding open a little egg and a little chicken, like phoenixy kind of thing popping out. I wanted the chick to glow and reflect light onto the girl from below. Kind of like when you take a buttercup and you place it under someone's chin and say, "Ooh, you must like butter." You like butter? I mean, that's gotta be one of the weirdest kid rituals. Now I say it, I bet loads of people are gonna comment with, "No, you're meant to say something like this." But when I was little, if the person's chin reflected yellow, you'd say, "Oh, you like butter." Well, what's really the response you can give to that? Yes, no, or the more obvious, "What the hell are you talking about?" It's not even an interesting fact to know about someone. Anyway, I'm struggling to get past this now that I'm thinking about it too much. I'm starting to wonder now if buttercups even exist outside of England. Okay, it's just not important. I've most likely confused everyone. The point I think I'm trying to make is that I like the reflected coloured light as a light source, especially when the person isn't cloaked in darkness at the same time. I think it's a nice way of creating some perspective with lighting, and I wanted to see if I could achieve that using layered watercolours. When it came to the background, I was a little lost too. I wanted to do something that felt almost similar to the appearance of the cracked eggshell, not too detailed or distracting, just complementary to the image. So I went with a large fishnet because I could give it that feeling of something a bit angular and fractured without drawing too much attention away from the girl. So even though I was panicked about this prompt when I read it, I did have a great time with it in the end. For day 6, the prompt was drooling. I was still riding the high from chicken, that went weirdly well. So for drooling, I wanted to stick with animals. I mentioned briefly on Instagram, but when I think about drooling, I think of my uncle's old St. Bernard called Spencer. He was lovely, and when he saw you, he'd come running over, and it was like a little horse was bounding around the house. It was really, really big dog. He also had no concept of how big he was. He thought he was this tiny little puppy, but when he stood up, he just put his paws up on your shoulders. I'll be honest, I loved him. If I was ever lucky enough to live in a massive house, I would want a St. Bernard. But to be honest, I would probably want a Newfoundland, because then I could go take it swimming in the sea. But anyway, if you have met a St. Bernard, you'll know that they really love nuzzling their big faces onto you and just covering you in a nice layer of drool and then fur, you know, just to identify you as the smelliest person in the room. Yeah, it's gross as hell, but they're too nice to get annoyed at for it. I'm just sitting here reminiscing, but this is why I wanted to draw something dog-like for drooling. I wanted to keep that magical feeling though too, and those storytelling elements from the earlier Inktober's that I've been doing, so I thought, how about taking that giant dog idea and instead imagining it as a big pack of wolves? I started sketching and I came up with this rough composition, and I knew that was the direction I wanted to take it. I love simple, more stylized characters, but I always feel really nervous and I often overwork designs, so I did try to stick to the thumbnail that I initially sketched for this one. I tried to make a dawn-like sky in the background, mixing a really light peach and dark blue, and I really love that colour combination. So yeah, if that was day 6, and finally, I'm sure you're thinking, was day 7, where the word was exhausted. Kind of like me in this voiceover. Honestly, not to ruin it immediately, but this was probably my least favourite of the week. So yeah, I'm a bit of a downer to end on. It's hard to pinpoint why as well, because part of me thinks that it's because I've looked at it for too long and I just didn't take a step back when I should have. I was so set on continuing, and sometimes that really isn't the right idea. I think too often we're given this idea, probably first at school but then at work as well, that it's better to just keep working on and on, even through bad ideas, rather than just walking away for a bit and then coming back to it later. I think it's incorrectly labelled as being perseverant, just trying to make bad ideas work, and then as if it's success when it does. But the truth is, walk away or not, if you're persevering, you'll get to the good idea in the end anyway. And the difference really is that the first route, where you just keep going, just takes a hell of a lot longer. And that's kind of how I felt with this piece. About halfway through this edit, when I've blocked out the plain colours, I just should have gone for a walk. Maybe gone and had a drink or a hot chocolate or just something, I don't know. Just not look at this painting for at least half an hour. And then, when I felt back in the mood, I could come back and see it with fresher eyes. But the Inktober deadline was just too in my head and I just kept plugging on with it. To me, the colour schemes are just overcomplicated. It's not that it doesn't work exactly, it's just a bit too detailed for me. I wanted a fantasy feeling to the sky behind the red panda, like that feeling of is it a sunset, or is this the red panda's dream that we're seeing? Is he really a giant panda sleeping on an apartment building, or is he actually in a tree and this is just what he thinks of himself? Maybe the idea was a bit too big for me, but I feel like I went for a bit too much and I maybe didn't reach it. But it's still pretty cute. And if anything, it reminds me that, yeah, these may be daily tasks, but that doesn't mean I have to panic and complete it immediately. I can still take a lot of breaths and just breathe. So yeah, I really want to end it on that thought. Week 1's over. Really, there's just 4 full weeks that make up Inktober and a couple of days at the end. I think if it's your first time attempting, or your second, or your third, there's still a lot of pressure. I imagine all of it self-imposed on, oh my god, I have to produce this. At least if you're anything like me. But the focus should be on having fun, or at least that's how I feel on it. That and finding great artists that you enjoy. It's hard to find original artwork online because so much of the time I feel that artists need to do fan art or anything just to get a following and be seen. But Inktober gives artists a great opportunity to exhibit their style and feelings towards art and be seen at the same time. Last year I got to meet so many great artists who've kept me entertained and amazed with their work all year round, and now I'm getting to see how much they've progressed, which is really wonderful. And this year I'm getting to meet even more people, which is brilliant. So with it being the first week, I just want to encourage all of you other artists out there to keep going, and even if you haven't started yet but you wanted to do it this year, just bloody do it. It's 7 drawings and so many people will want to see it. And if you're feeling a bit low, I'd recommend finding a few artists from Inktober either here on YouTube or over on Instagram or really anywhere online at the moment, and just tell that artist what you love about their work. That's what I do. It always makes me feel a lot better because I think it's really important to let the people that you admire know what you love and appreciate about their work. I know this is getting a bit long already, but that's one of the things I regret the most. I had this chance to go and see Richard Adams a few years ago at a book signing in Bristol, and I didn't make the journey, I was just a bit lazy. And Richard Adams, just if you didn't know, he wrote Watership Down, which is one of my favourite books ever, and it just means a great deal to me. And sadly he died nearly a year after that signing, and it just frustrates me that I had this chance to say thank you for writing that book and I never said it. It get me a bit upset talking about it, but I just think it's very important that we tell those that we admire what's great about them, because I know that at least I, and probably everyone, is sure happy enough to say when they're in a bad mood or even just a normal mood what they're not liking about things. So really we should try and make a bit more effort to say what we do like. So yeah, just motivate others to motivate yourself. Produce some great art and make sure to share it with me, either here or on Instagram. I'm going to feature some artists doing Inktober at the end, and maybe do a solid feature at the end of Inktober as well. I hope you've had a great first week, and here's to the second week being even better. Chat to you all soon.
Go, 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 go.